time to revisit a project I have neglected for far too long. In 2018, I got this 386 motherboard from a guy at work. It had a Varta battery which leaked everywhere. I took out a bunch of traces. I cut the battery out and cleaned the area with vinegar to see how bad the damage was. I wound up having to scrape off some of the goo to really see what I was dealing with. After seeing what was damaged, I did my first bodge wire job. The battery took out the keyboard connector, the battery vias, as well as the external battery header. I used an Ethernet cable as I couldn't find any other thin cable at the time. Some traces could just be jumped with a blob of solder. Others needed to run to their via at the other end of the board. After verifying connections were good on the fixed traces, the motherboard worked again. Here's a system booting after I got the traces repaired. Here's the model number of this generic board, CPU 3216SX. The back of the board looks great compared to what happened on the front. I added 8 megabytes of RAM as this didn't come with any. It has a BIOS chip from 1990, 16 megahertz 386SX chip, and a 3C87SX16 coprocessor. I also found this lithium battery from a 486 which somehow still works. I was just using it bare on the bench, but then I started building a case from scratch for it. I cut and bent some angle aluminum bars and started riveting them together to get the shape I wanted. It was starting to come together, but I couldn't get it squared up, so putting external pieces on the chassis wasn't really working. I was studying for exams to finish college, and I got a new job, so I just shelved this project back then in 2018. Alright, so I dug this out of the shed to get back to work on it. Wasn't sure it was still working as it's been 7 years. I powered it on with just the RAM and graphics card attached, but it doesn't even turn on. I reseated everything. I tried the graphics card in different slots. I put deoxid on everything I could. Still, nothing. I'm using a power supply out of a super micro server to test, as it's small and saves me some desk space. However, I wasn't sure that the voltages matched the AT to ATX PSU adapter. I started checking them and they were good, except for missing 5 volts, as expected. However, I went to check them again on camera and lo and behold, it just boots. So maybe when the probe pushed in one of the pins on the motherboard connector farther than it was, and it wasn't making good contact before. I don't even know at this point, but it turns on reliably now. So next I hooked up a combo IDE floppy drive controller card and 1.44 meg floppy drive, and apparently every single DOS boot disk I have has been corrupted. I even tried like OEM Windows NT 4 disks and I couldn't get anything to work except this random unlabeled Gateway 2000 restore disk. But yeah, I'm not restoring a gateway. Alright, so after all that BS, I went on my Windows XP machine and created a DOS 6.22 boot disk. And then I copied IDE diag to it so I can get the drive geometry of this SD card to IDE adapter I hooked up. And once I got the information I needed, I wrote it all down so that I can go back into the BIOS and enable a Type 47 user mode drive so that the computer can recognize a drive that does not technically have cylinders and heads. Once I got that all taken care of, I popped the SD card into my computer and copied over some files, Sound Blaster drivers and some games and some benchmarks. And also put a Sound Blaster 16 ISA card in, and that way we can have some sound. So the 386 just stopped working again, and not really sure why. And I did all the fixes that I tried last time, but I can't get it to boot back up. So I found this 486 Blue Lightning IBM motherboard, and it's got a socket for a Pentium I think it's a Pentium overdrive, 486 overdrive, whatever. But it's got a 486 built in. I took the Cyrix Fast Math 487 out for some reason years ago. I gotta figure out where I put it. But I put a 4 meg stick in here. But I turned it on with the same video card from the 386, and this capacitor exploded. So I desoldered it. It's this little guy here. Let's see if we can focus in on it. There we go. It's a 10 microfarad capacitor. Yeah, never done any cap swapping, so we'll have to see what I come up with. But seems like the rest of the board's working for now. It's got 75 megahertz 486, which is kind of crazy. So I might be going with this board if I can't get the other one to work. I might just downclock it. So to get started building the case, I chose to go with this 15 by 15 by 6 conduit junction box. And so yeah, I wanted to make sure the motherboard would fit. I marked and drilled all my standoffs. I made some 3D printed feet to go in the wall mounting holes, which actually worked out perfectly. Then I started designing what I want the front to look like. So my printer is not the biggest, so I had to print in some little pieces here and there. And started painting, and yeah, then I marked the front where I needed to cut some holes for the drives and also the buttons and LEDs and stuff. Yeah, and here's 10 seconds of unedited dremeling the case. This took forever to make just one small hole, and it would have worked a lot better if this metal wasn't so damn thick. Alright, so after the Dremel attempt, I got the grinder out and cut the rest of the spaces I needed. I cut the whole back off. I got my hole in the front where I need to put the drive bays. I did not record using the grinder as I did not follow any safety precautions. I bought one of these mining rig chassis off eBay, and luckily it comes unassembled, so I just took the back plane, which is the only part I wanted, lopped off the power supply side so I can get the width down that I needed. Needed to raise up the motherboard a little bit to fit, but basically got a long standoff and a short standoff, and fits perfectly. I'm just adding bracing here and there and JB welding everything together for now. While all that's drying, I'm trying to come up with a way to mount the drives, which, by the way, don't use nail polish remover to try to take silkscreen off of plastic. No matter what you see on the internet, just chews it up. Anyway, I'm using one of these 3 1/4 drive bays for the SD card reader. So I'm planning on having 3 3¼ drives and then 1 5½. So these are the brackets I came up with. These will hold all of my drives in place. I have a blank 3¼ because the power cable and the IDE ribbon cable are kind of too tight if I have a drive touching right on top of the SD card adapter. Otherwise, it's pretty sweet. And you can put, 3 3¼ drives in there if you wanted. I did have the holes for another drive, or I measured it with 2 floppy drives, so. All right, so I figured out how high I need the space the drives to sit, to fit through the front opening. And just use like some rubber feet and some random blanks. And once I got that figured out, I went into Fusion to try to make some kind of mounting bracket. I was trying to be clever with this so like it would slide in from the front and then I can screw it down. This will mount to the bottom of the drive stack I just showed. So that's printing. That's gonna take a while. And got more JB weld to dry, so probably nothing left on this project this week. Well, we out here now. Time to do some body work on this thing. I hit it with some primer yesterday just to see what it looked like a little bit, but yeah, gonna start sanding it now. Sand and 1 coat of flat black. Yeah, it's wet. But we're gonna need some body filler in some places, obviously. But I just wanted to see what it looks like all one piece. So yeah, the inside's black, and that's where the dry is gonna mount. The outside's not gonna be black. I'm trying to do the inside more like the old XT PC. So the back and the inside would be black, and then the rest is some other color. And the front, I just hit with the green primer again, just to see how much work. And god damn, I got a lot of sanding and body work to do. More to come. All right, so I've been working on this for about 3 weeks now, and this project's taking longer than expected. So hate to cut it here, but stay tuned for part 2, where I'm gonna finish the case. I'm gonna see if I can get that 386 board working again, and if not, going with the 486. And then, once it's all completed, I'm gonna be testing out some stuff on the machine that I always have wanted to. All right, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for part 2. Thank you very much for watching.